Hello my lovely people and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my June wrap up, and every time I sit down to do these videos and I like collate all the books that I've read, it seems like such a long time ago at the beginning of the month. Like I swear I read these books ages ago, but you know, it's just a weird thing. The months are going so fast in lockdown. I feel like they're just flying by. But yeah, I managed to read 6 books this month. That's quite exciting. I mean, my TBR was 12 if you remember back then, because I was doing the Myth Take readathon that Ashley does over her channel for the Myth Take book club, and I failed miserably, but I had such a good time doing this readathon. So you know, you win some, you lose some. I failed miserably. I read 6 books, but none of them were like one full set. So yes, that's a sad one. I tried, I had fun. That's the whole point of these readathons, is to have fun and do your best and complete them, but I didn't, but it's fine, it's fine. So 6 books. I'm going to get straight into the video. I haven't done any stats this month because I don't think they're that useful. I've decided I'm not going to do them anymore. This month I read 6 books, and they're mainly focused on LGBTQ plus representation or mythology related, because obviously it's the mythology readathon. I think I have two just none of those categories because YOLO. So the first book that I have is Crier's War by Nina Varela. This is a book set in a world where autome have been created and they are now the superior kind of race. So humans made these creatures that look like humans, but they're actually made, they're not born or anything like that, and they kind of can choose what characteristics they have. They have 2 kind of more human characteristics and then 2 autome characteristics, and then they kind of revolted and overthrew the humans because they're more powerful, they're stronger, they don't bleed as much, they heal quicker and things like that. And this follows 2 girls in that world. It follows Crier, who is the kind of heir to the kingdom, and she is a maid autome person, and then also follows Ayla, who is a human servant, but her family were destroyed by the kingdom king dude. So Crier's dad, I suppose, the guy who made Crier, or kind of paid for her to be made, I suppose. And she wants to take revenge on this dude by killing Crier because he killed her family, so she's gonna kill his. This doesn't quite go to plan, and there ends up being a little bit of a romance brewing between the 2 of them. So this is a female-female romance, and I really enjoyed the world and I really enjoyed the storyline, and I'm very interested to see how it goes. I don't know what star rating I gave it. Bear with me 1 second. So yeah, I gave this a 3.5 stars because I really loved the world and I really liked the plot. There were a little bits that didn't quite hit me as hard as I would have liked them to. Like there was one character that dies in this, and I just would have liked more of an emotional reaction from myself. But I think that's because I was in a little bit of a reading slump because of the book I'd been reading previously to this book. So I'm not sure if I would actually put it down to this book itself. And also the writing was very YA-ish, if that makes sense. So yeah, it was just, I don't know, there's just little bits in the writing style that didn't agree with me, and that's why I gave it a 3.5 stars. But I really want to carry on the series and I would recommend it. A lot of people love it, and I've never really heard anyone say anything negative about the writing style. So if this is a story that you would be interested in, I would definitely recommend it. I wouldn't let that put you off because I think I'm just very picky with my writing style. So there you go. It was a good book. So yes, that one is the first book I finished. Then I finished Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. This is another one that I've seen everywhere on BookTube, and I think it's a validated one to be loved. I gave this a 5 stars. Yeah, I give this as 5 stars. If you saw, I did weekly reading vlogs, and every single book in this collection have been in them. So if you want like a more kind of gradual thought process, check those out. I'll link them below somewhere. And this is a gradual, like slow burner. It's very slow paced. It's kind of just a warm, slow, kind of cozy read, but it's not really cozy, but it feels like that. Does that make sense? Like, it doesn't have cozy topics in it, but it feels like that when you're reading it. Don't know if that makes sense. So it's quite slow paced. It's just a lovely book to read. The main character, Kaya, is a girl who lives on a mast, and quite early on in the book she's forced to be like seriously independent. All her family kind of abandon her and she has to live off the land that she lives in, and just survive by it, and the local village are quite mean to her because they think that she's just like a wild creature and not really part of their nice idyllic village. So she is forced to be really independent, and then along the way she meets two guys and has different relationships with them, and it's kind of just her coming of age, exploring the world and her passions and discovering a passion for the life that she lives, and just it was just a lovely read. And then alongside it in the background, I would say, is a murder mystery that is set in the present day, and then you go back about 10 years and then work up to it. It's mainly Kaya's story as she grows up, and then every so often you have a small little chapter about the murder mystery that's from the perspective of the detectives that are a bit like bumbling buffoons. They're not very good, and they're literally like a couple of pages. So I would definitely say the murder mystery is in the background, but it does just kind of pull you through the narrative, especially if you're finding it a bit too slow. I loved the kind of slow burn that it was, because it's the kind of book that you don't realise how much you're loving it and how much you care for Kaya, the character, until you really care for her. So that kind of just like sneaks up on you, or it did for me anyway. But I loved it. I gave it 5 stars, and I want loads of people to read it. I've recommended it to like all my family, so we'll see if they like it. I feel like my mum won't like it, but maybe my gran will. But there we go. So yes, slow burner, slow paced, but lovely. I feel like maybe if you liked The Bear and the Nightingale, that kind of slow paced, you'll like this, but I preferred this book personally because I really connect with the character a lot more. So if you like that as a fantasy and you're looking for a contemporary to go alongside it, there you go. Although it's not technically a contemporary because it's set in the 1960s, so it's a modern history book. There you go. Okay, so next on the agenda I finished The Odyssey by Homer, and then it's translated by Emily Wilson. So she is the first female to translate the Odyssey, and I think this is a bloomin' marvellous translation. So obviously I've not read the original Greek because I don't speak ancient Greek. I think it would be very interested though to read it in the original, so if I ever learn another language, maybe I'll try ancient Greek. This is a very interesting book if you're interested in Greek mythology, and if you're interested in retellings of Greek mythology as well. So if you've read Circe by Madeline Miller, those kind of books, I think reading the source text is always going to make reading those books more interesting and more fascinating, and just seeing how those authors have taken these texts and expanded on them or put their own twist on the story and stuff like that. I haven't read, but I really want to, because I've read extracts from it in classes at university, the translation notes at the beginning and the introduction, because Emily Wilson has really interesting ideas on how to translate ancient Greek, and she also draws on the history of previous male translators and how they've kind of twisted or translated words, not incorrectly, but they've definitely put their own prejudice and their own judgment on their translation, and a lot of it is sadly quite condemning to women. So it is very interesting if that's something you're interested in. So yes, I would definitely recommend this. It just reads like a story, this translation. It doesn't read like some kind of really difficult ancient poem. So if you're intimidated by the fact that it's ancient literature, definitely don't be, because it does have its own kind of characteristics in the modern day translation. Like, it's translated for the modern reader. It's not made to be alien to you. It's meant to help you and make it accessible for you. So yes, it was a lovely read. I think I gave it 4 stars, and I think it will be better when I am studying this as a module next year, so that will be interested to see more and kind of learn a bit more about it and all that juicy stuff. So yes, exciting. So the 4th book I have is Crown at Midnight by Sarah J Maas. This is the 2nd book in the Throne of Glass series, and it is a reread for me. I am slowly making my way through 1 per month of this series, and it's just nice to be back in the world. Yeah, it's a nice comfort read. I think this was one of the first fantasy series I ever read, like the 2nd one I think. It was very nostalgic to read, and I would say this is probably one of my least favourite ones in this series. I gave it 3 stars just because there seems to be no overarching kind of plot to it. It's just a lot of bits and pieces that are kind of put together to make the next book, and which is the kind of where the remainder of the story kind of spirals from. So obviously there's a big plot twist at the end of this, and then that kind of sets the groundwork for the rest of the series. So it was kind of like in a trilogy, you know, when you have that middle book, that's kind of like the awkward middle book. This is the awkward middle book, even though it's the 2nd one in the series, and there's like 7 books in this series. But I still enjoyed it, and I still we'll carry on with the series. I think the next book is my favourite in this series that I can remember. So the 5th book that I finished this month is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, and I gave this 4.5 stars. It was very close to 5 stars. Can't really tell you why it's not 5 stars, just didn't get that 5-star feel as I always talk about, but it was a masterpiece. This is a beautiful book, not only on the outside but on the inside too. Madeline Miller's writing in this is beautiful, her story is beautiful, the romance is beautiful, it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful book. So this follows not Achilles. The main point of view is Patroclus, who is Achilles' best friend and lover in this book. I haven't read the original Iliad, so I'm not sure if that's something that Madeline Miller has expanded on or it is in the original. The only other thing that I have to compare it to is The Silence of the Girls, which is a retelling by Pat Barker of the Iliad, but that follows a very different point of view, coming from Briseis, who is a concubine captured by Achilles and kind of meant to serve him. So obviously she has a much more negative opinion of Achilles, and it's a much more kind of gritty and dark retelling that doesn't show any kind of, I don't know, they're just very good friends, Patroclus and Achilles, in that they're kind of like bromance. So I'm not really sure if that's from the original, but I liked the twist, if it's a twist, or you know what I mean? You know what I mean? So this follows Patroclus and Achilles right from their childhood, and as I'm someone that knows the tale of, or how their story ended, it was very interesting to see whether or not I would feel emotional at the end, and I did. I cried. So yeah, this is 4.5 rounded up to a 5-star read, not rounded down. Definitely not rounded down. It was beautiful. Every single line was like simplistic, like it had no flamboyances on it, it had no kind of yada yada stuff on it. It was just beautifully curated so that every single line mattered in like a super, like beautifully simplistic way. And the romance, it was just like, this is the most epic romance I've ever read. So it's beautiful. And it just, yeah, it had all the kind of like the ups and bumps and the downs and stuff that you get in relationships and the complexities, but it also had just the true kind of rawness of it all. It was just, I don't know, it was just very good. I would recommend. Again, this is another one I see all over BookTube, and rightly so. It's phenomenal. So yeah, I would recommend, and it has really inspired me to read much more Greek mythology. As I mean, I read Circe, that was the first ever kind of Greek mythology related thing that I read, and that spiraled into a great passion for that, which is now going to be in my dissertation and stuff like that. So I'm a fan of Madeline Miller. I'm a fan. So yeah, I would recommend. Okay, and third and final, no, not third, 6th and finally, we have Girl Serpent Thorn by Melissa Bashar-Dust. She is a own voice writer writing a Persian-inspired fantasy with a bi main character, and I love the representation of the bi main character. It was just something that was accepted. Like, she just, you know, had these attractions for both the female and the male character, and it just was part of her, and I just kind of liked that. It was just that. I really enjoyed also the plot and the kind of storyline that this was going. So it's inspired, I believe, by Sleeping Beauty. I'm not overly familiar with the original tale. I'm not a very big princessy girl, but I did really enjoy the overall story, the world, and if you have, well, this isn't out yet apparently. I didn't know that. This came in the Fake Rate box that I got this month, and it's beautiful. It's a special edition for them, so it's normally a white cover with like no sprayed edges, but if you, I think it should be in the normal one. I don't know why they wouldn't have it in the normal one. But at the back they have an author's note, but she explains where she got the inspiration from, where like the language she's used, why she's used it, the kind of mythology she's used inside it, the naming of the characters and the species and the demons and all that kind of thing, which is really interesting, and I really enjoyed reading that bit, and that would be something I would recommend reading as well. Don't just skip over that when you finish it. The one thing I will say about this is that I wasn't a huge fan again of the writing style. Again, I think I'm just being picky, but one of the things that really got on my nerves was that there were a lot of rhetorical questions in this book, or kind of self-doubt questions, you know, like where she was thinking. It was written in third person, but the narrator was still very much in her head, and there was just like so many questions, and I don't know, I feel like rhetorical questions have to be used very sparingly. but I suppose it's just like a writing style, and it was just something, once I noticed, it was something that I couldn't get past very easily, so that is one thing. And again, it's quite YA language and sentences and stuff like that, but again, that's me being picky, so who knows. I think I gave it, the same as Crier's War, a 3.5 stars, but I really loved the book and the world and everything like that, and I don't know, is this a standalone? I haven't even told you what it's about. So this follows a girl who is poisonous. She has been locked up in a tower, very fairy tale like, and kind of shunned from her family, not because they don't like her, but because they are scared of what the public will think, because they are the rulers of the country that she is in, and they don't want them to doubt them, because there are these other creatures called Thieves, and they are like demons. They have like scales or like horrible features, like there's a dead looking woman, she looks like she's dead, like a corpse, and there's like a snake dude, and there's like, you know, there's a variety of them, and they don't want them to kind of think that they're part of that, because she's obviously poisonous and she has like green veins and everything like that, which is pretty cool. So anyone who touches her dies basically, so she has to be very careful. She doesn't really have any friends. The people that the people who were her friends were her like brother and a girl that lived in the palace, but they've kind of abandoned her almost as they've grown older and kind of just forgotten about her. So she leads a very lonely life, and then one day her like family comes back from wherever they've been, and they come back every year for a few months, and it all kind of seems to spiral as she meets this new person who kind of stirs up a bit of trouble. I enjoyed it. I would recommend it to people who like YA fantasy and bi representation. It's a good thing. So those are all the books that I read this month. Let me know if you read any of them, or are thinking about reading any of them, or have a different opinion than me. I would say that is a good reading month, because I didn't dislike any of those books. Like, that's pretty good, and there was, yeah, I had a good reading month. I hope you did too. So even though I failed miserably at the Make You Myth Take a Readathon, I had a jolly good old time, and yeah. So if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed me, subscribe or like the video, comment if you wish to, do whatever you want basically, and I shall hopefully see you in another video.